This hour's keyword for cash in the multi-market contest is touchdown. Call star WIN now. That's star 946 or enter online at 1067thefandc.com/cash by 9:20 Eastern Time. Message and data rates apply. If you're randomly selected, we'll call you. And if you know the keyword for cash, you're going to win $1,000. Again, the keyword for cash is touchdown. Call star 946 now for your chance to win $1,000. And you'll have another chance to win in just about an hour with Grant and Danny.
Very cool.
All right, so Drabby, what are we doing? Are we trying to track down Bob?
Yeah, we're calling him on a landline right now.
Just 1 second, pal.
So he'll be there for sure?
Yeah, just talk to him.
All right.
Bob Ryan, I think, was one of the original sports reporters, right?
I think so.
I used to watch that show. I've told the story on the air a couple times, but when we started our cable access show in Bowie, which was 1995, I was in my first year of law school. I just finished my first year of law school. We started doing the TV show, and my mom said, "These guys are just like you guys, except they're a lot older."
Right. Well, now we're
a lot
them.
more accomplished.
Now we're them.
Smarter.
What was
better dressers?
I think the original group was Dick Shapp.
Yeah.
You had Tony Kornheiser at times, Bob Ryan,
Mike Lupica.
You had Conlon.
Yeah.
Bill
Conlon?
That guy went down in a ball of flames.
He's no longer with us.
Did he pass?
I think Bill
No,
Conlon's
then he
dead.
had like a pedophile thing.
He's passed.
I thought he passed.
Oh, he did? He died too?
January of 2014.
He did.
According to the internet, which never lies, January 9th, 2014.
Yeah, that's just bad.
We got to thank Pete on Sports for making the Chick-fil-A run this morning. Thank you very
Pete.
much.
Appreciate that. Good man.
I did my typical move of not ordering anything, but just eating some of Cakes'
That's
food.
okay. You can have some of my tots.
Those
You
tots
can
are
have
selling.
half of my biscuit if you want.
No, I don't do bread.
Okay.
I was telling the fellas, if Chick-fil-A ever goes public and they offer shares, you got to shove all your chips in.
Why wouldn't you?
It's just the money-making machine.
All right.
Printing it.
I think we have Bob here joining us right now. It's a pleasure to have him on. Bob Ryan, he's got a new book out, Scribe, My Life in Sports by Bob Ryan, longtime journalist for the Boston Globe. Bob, good morning.
Good morning.
How are
Bob,
you?
you like Chick-fil-A, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
Man, isn't that good?
The standard sandwich is I can't eat just one. I have to be honest.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Double down.
but do you like the breakfast sandwiches or like
No,
the
I've never
lunch?
had it for breakfast. I'm only a lunch guy.
He likes the original chicken sandwich with the pickle on
The
it.
original one, yeah. I throw the pickle out. I don't want the pickle. but I can't stop with one. It's always have to.
No, I mean, it's good stuff.
And
it
the
really
waffle fries are addictive, too.
Yep.
Yeah, they're good.
We were just saying, if they ever go public, we're going all in on Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, never on Sunday, though.
That's right.
All right, so how many years were you with the Boston Globe, and do you still contribute?
I contribute on Sundays, 2 or 3 Sundays a month. I write 30 to 40 a calendar year just on Sunday. I got out of the Globe full time in 2012 after 44 years. So
Wow.
44 years full time, and then the last 2 years I'm officially retired from the Globe.
Right, and we of course know you from the sports reporters. Were you one of the original guys when the show first started?
The show started in '88. No, the first year was a little bit different format with a different host and a different owner. But after 1 year, Terry O'Neill created the show, the great Emmy Award-winning producer and director, and Joe Valerio bought it from him in '89. And Joe and I had a strong acquaintance back in the '70s when he wrote for the New York Post, and then he got into television producing and worked in both CBS and NBC for years. Then he got this show, and he invited me onto it in '89, and I've been there ever since.
Could you foresee this transformation? How long did it take before it dawned on you that, oh my God, all of these guys that are grinders, that are scribes like yourself, are going to become TV superstars, and a lot of them give up writing?
There were always radio opportunities in the '70s. I did
Right.
a lot of radio filling in, and a lot of radio. I even had a Saturday morning gig for a while, as a talk show. I did a lot of talk radio in the '70s, never full time, but always in the mix, and occasional local television hits, but not much. And then ESPN came into being, and during the '70s, I would be interview subject for at a site. I remember very distinctly being in Milwaukee, being interviewed on the day of Dr. J's last game, which happened to be in Milwaukee circa 1987. And so I had a little TV experience, and then, but none of us ever thought that it would become such a major thing. Now, the first thing that happened was radio, and it got to be a point where if you were a columnist in America and you didn't have a radio show, you were a chump,
Right.
And then I never got to that stage because I did not want a full-time radio job because it was too time-consuming, but a lot of people did. Fine. The TV thing happened, and they need bodies. They need programming. They need content. And first of all, you had the Will McDonough going on and paving the way for the Mortons and Schefters and Claytons of the world and
Right.
Blazers, all the insiders. He was the first quote-unquote insider. He was a Boston Globe guy, of course. And the rest of us just kind of, if we were good on TV, they needed programming. And when they formed Around the Horn in 2002, I was a charter member, and I've been filling in as a host on summers and anytime they asked me on PTI for the whole time of their existence. And so and I'm on local television on Comcast here once or twice a week. So TV's now what I do more than anything. The writing, I do a little bit of writing.
So, Bob, I want to take you back to you went to Boston College, correct?
Yes.
All right. Then you joined the Boston Globe. How many years out of college?
Oh, no New Year's. I was a summer intern.
Oh,
I
you're right there.
graduated June 3rd, 1968, and I started as a summer intern June 10th, where I met this guy named Gammons. You may have heard of him.
Oh, yeah. Of
Who
course.
was North Carolina. We hit it off immediately, and we've been friends ever since.
So when the Globe asked you to be the Celtics beat guy in 1969-ish,
Yep.
all right. So I mean, how are you? You're 22, 23 years old, whatever.
Yeah.
And you're covering, Havlicek and Cowens. I guess Bill Russell was gone or soon after that. And JoJo White, all the great Celtics.
Red Auerbach.
How did you? Yeah, and Red. How did you kind of get into that circle? And I mean, especially as a 22, 23-year-old kid, were you intimidated? I read that you became pretty close with the team. You would go out to dinner with them. How did that all happen? What was that like?
The basketball writing part was the easy part. I knew I could write basketball, and I did. Anybody, anytime, ever, as a beat person, you're a salesperson, and you must sell yourself to the team, to the players, to the coaching staff, and the administrators. You have to sell yourself. And what does this mean? It means that you have credibility and trustworthiness. And you have to demonstrate that you have some knowledge and interest in the game, and by the questions you ask and the way you present the information you're given. And then you have to earn the trust by being able to, once they get to know you as a person. Now, this is all in the past tense because these days this access is gone.
Right.
But in those days, you had total access, total. And you demonstrated over time that you knew what was printable and not printable. You knew when you heard an offhand remark whether or not it was off the record or on the record. You showed that maybe you could hear something and print it 6 weeks later when the dust had cleared rather than right away. It takes time to earn the trust, and I did, particularly with the team. And the coach and I eventually had a little spat because the coaches, his interests aren't our interests. I mean, that's something. One thing I learned, and well, I'm jumping ahead. So but that's the answer. Is anybody then and now must be a salesperson, and that includes looking presentable, and then looking a little professional now and then, and so forth. And in my case, it was extreme enthusiasm for the game of basketball. I knew the game. I loved the game. I had been immersed in the game. It's the one game I had played as long as I could, and I continued to play, for another 20 years. And I was able to learn about the NBA from the Professor Havlicek, Professor Sanders, Professor Nelson, etc. I was the same age as the youngest players. I wasn't that much younger than the oldest players.
But was it uncomfortable when you had to criticize the team?
No, well, I was lucky. Well, I had to go after JoJo particularly because the team was upset that Heinsohn was coddling JoJo, letting him get away with stuff on the court that they thought should have been governed, and Tommy his own version of things, and that's what led to a little problem between me and Heinsohn. I was lucky, and anybody's lucky. If the team is good, the team got good. The first year I covered the team, they were a veteran team. They were 34-48. They weren't supposed to go anywhere, and they didn't. And that was just a tread water year for me. And the next year, Cowens came, and they started to get good. And by the fourth year, they won 68 games.
Wow.
Covering a team that wins 68 games, there aren't too many negative things going on. And the one thing that was this thing with JoJo White. So, you're lucky when you cover a good team. You don't have to worry about these things. And I only really covered one horrible team as a beat man. That was 78-79, the second time when I went back for the second time to cover the team. And then Bird came. And then we had the Bird era, and that's all I had from that point on. So I'm very lucky. I mean, I feel bad for people that have to cover dreary, awful teams because, the negativity is really...
Right. Imagine covering the Redskins.
Yeah, like the Redskins, right?
No, seriously, absolutely. I would not imagine. There's no fun there for that in that sense, and the attitudes and the stories, and it's the more they change, the more they stay the same with the Redskins. Let's face it, it's been in the Snyder era, it's been relentlessly, dreary, and yeah. So I was lucky in that regard. I've been lucky in a lot of ways, and certainly one of them was having a team that was good, so you don't have to worry about the negativity.
Joined by the legendary writer Bob Ryan, has a memoir out called Scribe, My Life in Sports. You can get it everywhere. Let me ask you about a guy who you covered many years with the Boston Celtics, Paul Pierce. He's now here in D.C. We got a chance to talk to him once, briefly. Found him to be very charismatic, engaging, personable. What's your take on Paul Pierce?
Paul Pierce is, I don't know that we know the real Paul Pierce. I start off with one thing on Paul Pierce. Paul Pierce almost died. And, I mean, he came within a quarter inch of being dead. On a stabbing and a stupid incident that, he was dancing with the wrong person in the wrong place at the wrong time, and he didn't do anything wrong. He did nothing wrong to deserve this, nothing, zero. I mean, it wasn't like he was out of this wasn't one of those 3 a.m. things, you know what I mean? I mean, that, the line about nothing good happens after midnight or 2 or 3 or whatever. Now, I mean, and I thought he came back too soon. I mean, frankly, I admire Paul Pierce for sticking with the Celtics, for living through the bad times, and he totally deserved the good times. Technically, let me get right to the chase here because I've been criticizing Boston for saying this. Paul Pierce is the greatest individual scoring machine in the history of the Boston Celtics.
Wow.
Not a better player than John Havlicek. He's not a better player than Larry Bird, but he is the best consummate scorer. No Celtic player has ever had more ways to get the ball in the basket than Paul Pierce. He has a three-point game. He can drive. He's a great driver, great attack the basket, a great finisher on a fast break. An old throwback player with 117 tricks. He's got the greatest up fakes and off-balance shots, and foul him, he makes his free throws. He doesn't need a pick. He can get his own shot, and always. So in that sense, he's the greatest individual scoring machine in Celtics history. That's quite an honor.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. I know we're running short on time here, but I wanted to ask you. We talk about the day, probably once a month. Was Lenny Bias dying, and a couple of us went to DeMatha High School, which is right next to Northwestern High School. I actually played against his younger brother Jay Bias in high school. What was that day like in '86? He was obviously one of the heroes here locally in the DC area. What was that day like when you were covering the team? And what do you remember about that day?
Well, number one, this was always more of a DC story than a Boston story. So
right.
We knew Lenny Bias for less than 24 hours, literally. The draft was at noon. He was drafted. He flew up to Boston. I was part of a radio broadcast. Here's my story. To answer your question.
Mm-hmm.
I was writing for the Globe. I was doing a little radio with a local station, and the station that had the games. And I was part of the interview duo or trio that interviewed him when he came up to Boston for the initial press conference. He was wearing a new gray suit. He had a Celtic green hat on. He was smiling broadly. He was nice and polite and friendly. His father was standing aside beaming with his own hat on, as I recall. And then he left and went on his merry way, and we didn't know where he was going. I think he was going to a party in Cambridge before he went home. Next morning, I'm on my way to the office, as I recall. I'm backing out of the driveway in my house, same house I'm living in now, and my then 16-year-old son ran out of the house. It was June, of course. School was over, and he said, Dad, Lenny Bias is dead. I said, wait a minute, what? No, Len Bias is dead. Something happened. I drove immediately to the Boston Garden and wrote the story. That's it. The Celtics, it hit red hard, and the domino effect at University of Maryland was astonishing. All the jobs that were lost, all the years that were lost, the whole thing. It crushed Lefty. I had one little precede here. During the course of the draft period, we on our station were getting a hold of all the coaches of all the prospective draft picks of the Celtics, such as, of course, it would have been Doherty. It would have been William Bedford was one, and we talked to Dana Kirk. And we talked to Lefty. And Lefty's final line about Lenny Bias with us was, Leonard's only vice is ice cream. And I always remember that line. I think Lefty believed that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so Red was close to Lefty. Red, was so proprietary towards all things Washington, and all things Washington. Any player comes out of Washington, Red loved by definition, and so he was just ecstatic to have Len Bias. I had seen Lenny Bias in person drop the 40 in Cameron. I was there the night he dropped 40 on Duke in Cameron. I happened to be there. Don't ask me why I was there. I was there.
Yeah.
Talked to Coach K twice. I'm rambling. Twice. In my experience with Coach K, he has told me that the two greatest opponents he ever dealt with were Michael Jordan and Len Bias.
Yep.
The Celtics, I thought, he was the bridge player. They would have won in '87. They needed one more player. Would have been him. Probably would have won in '88. They needed one more player. Would have been him. And then sooner or later, there would have been an upheaval because somebody would have had to go. He was going to have to play more. So he wasn't going to come off the bench forever. That's a great imponderable what if. The Celtics talked about how much set them back for 10 years. I thought they held on to it way too long. After a while, okay. It's a Washington story. It always was and always will be.
Right. All right. Well, it's great stuff, Bob. It's Describe My Life in Sports. Bob Ryan. It's available everywhere. We just got it. I wish we had it earlier so we could ask you more in-depth questions, but we're going to read it, and we encourage our listeners. Thank you very much.
I'll just say one more thing. It's available in audio for the number of people, the growing number, who prefer their books in that form.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Bob.
it. Okay. Yeah, but that's how my mom
you got
reads
some
her
good
books.
stories, buddy.
Audiobooks, yep.
My mom, she just strictly listens to audiobooks. She won't read.
It's her thing.
I don't tell you.
Runs in the family because you won't read either.
I read. Are you kidding? Do you know how many of these kind of books I read?
I know. I'm
I've
kidding.
probably read 500 of these. I love these kind of books.
So his book's called Scribe because he's been a sports writer for over 40 years.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen, but what if we do this for 40 years? What would you call our book? Yeah.
Dead? Dead men walking?
Uninteresting?
I'll used to call it Break.
Yeah.
About
you would
these,
want
he's
a
been
title.
snapping his hands for the last 10 minutes.
All right, we'll be right back.